Hello again, I'm Maurice and I've got another food for thought for you this Friday morning. I've been thinking this week about the need to be needed. Why do we need to be needed? Why do I need to be needed? Is it my insecurity? Maybe my pride? Why do I need attention? Am I insecure? And if I am, is it self-love? If I need people to love me? You know, when you need to be needed, it puts you in a vulnerable position. And you need to please people instead of pleasing God. There's a scripture that says that Jesus gave himself to no man. Let me read it you from John 2, verse 24. But Jesus did not commit himself unto them, because he knew all men, and need not that any should testify of men, for he knew what was in man. Jesus didn't need to be needed, he didn't need the recommendation of men, he didn't need to please men, and that's how we should be. But we all struggle with pride and insecurity, and surely pride's the root of all our sin and all our problems. All our faults, because pride's about what we want. I want to be liked. I want to be popular. I don't like to be unpopular. I don't want to be stood out from the crowd like Jesus was. Well, let me give you some personal testimonies. I grew up full of pride, and that made me insecure. I needed to be liked. I was frightened of failure. That was my pride. I used to lie to cover it up. I remember I was picked, I must have been about 12, 13, and I was picked for the cricket team. I was good at sports. I was an international gymnast when I was 16. But when I was 12 or 13, I played cricket at school and I was good. And I was picked for the team to play another school on Saturday morning. And the teacher says, Barrett, be at school at I think it was 10 o'clock. We're going to play another school. And I love cricket. I love catching the ball and being part of a team. But I was frightened of failure. And I lied. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I can't, sir. I've got to go errands for my mum on a Saturday morning. It was a lie. My dad would have been pleased, so pleased. He was an athlete. He had trials for Manchester United when he was a young man. He was mad on football. And yet I lied because I was frightened of failure. I was frightened I'd drop a catch or I'd be out for a duck. I remember going to school one day and it was raining. And I didn't have an overcoat, so I got to school in my little blazer. And I was dripping wet. It was 3/4 of a mile and I used to run all the way there. And the teacher looked at me and he says, Barrett, he said, why haven't you got an overcoat? And I don't know what I said, but he said, you have got one, haven't you? And I said, oh yes, sir, I just like to run to school. But I was lying. I didn't have an overcoat. I only had a blazer. And so I lied rather than telling the truth. And I grew up with this insecurity. I thought we were poor. Actually, we lived in a 3-storey Victorian semi that my gran had left us. And my father had been in business and my sister went to private school, but he got saved and he got rid of the business and my sister had to come out of private school. And he got a job at nights working on the buses to try and build a ministry and build a church, started a church in the front room. And so we were poor according to me because the man next door was a bank manager and they had fitted carpets and nice furniture. We had lino on the floor and coconut mattings. And it was just a different world and I thought that was normal. That's what I wanted, that luxury. And so I grew up with that insecurity and It's amazing. Years later I realised it was only my pride and my distorted view of our family and myself. But I'll leave you with a scripture to think about today and this week. 1 Corinthians 7 verse 22. For he that is called is the Lord. Being a servant is the Lord's freeman. Likewise also he that is called, being free, is Christ's servant. You were bought with a price, so don't be servants of men. That's clear instruction. Don't serve men. Please God, not people. Don't need to be needed. That's your insecurity and pride. Well, we have Christ in our lives, so there's no need to prove ourselves. There's no need to hide behind our insecurity. And after all, it's only exposing your pride to those who know those things. Well, time's gone. Have a great day. This week, please God and not man. And keep thinking.